You're
Nice to
welcome.
nice to see you. We are glad to see you. Who again do we have here that we have not seen for a very long time?
Abbas.
Mm. Honorable
Okay,
Abbas.
hello.
Yeah, it's been a
Yes,
while.
so this is Solomon.
Okay, Solomon.
Solomon.
Solomon, why are you joining us
Yeah,
from?
from Ghana, Northern region, Northern Hub Lead, yet to
Okay,
start.
Oh,
okay,
welcome.
Thank you.
okay. Thanks for joining us. I'm still responding to messages, sending the links to people to join. Um, I thought Abbas was talking. Abbas, how are you doing? How's Senegal?
Are you addressing to me?
Okay, so let's keep it rolling then. Can you see my screen? Can you please see my screen?
It's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can see.
Okay. So all of you, welcome once again to the Catalyst African Town Hall. As you can see on the screen today we'll be discussing everything Cardano. We'll be talking about the governance processes and what's going on, and then we'll be talking about the current affairs as well. If today is your first time joining us, or it has been a while since you joined us, we want you to know that we are here to foster innovation, collaboration, and economic growth among Africans. And if you may ask, what is Catalyst African Town Hall? We are vibrant community initiatives that we are fostering collaboration and knowledge sharing within the blockchain sphere across Africa continent. We do this through engaging town hall sessions. We explore blockchain advancement. We do discussions. We discuss innovative proposals. And we also work towards the collective goal of expanding the adoption of blockchain in Africa and beyond. So if you're here, thank you very much for joining us today. You are part of us and part of our family. I will give this part to Obio to read for us. Welcome to CAT. Obio, over to you.
Thank you. From the mountains of Kilimanjaro to the soothing sounds of the Nile, across the expanse of the savannah, the depth and breadth that surrounds Mother Africa, we say, Karibu, Akwaba, Kabo, Bienvenue. Welcome to another exciting Catalyst African Town Hall. Our ship is ready to sail through. Sit tight and get ready for a breathtaking experience as we show you around the wall of blockchain and other exponential technology in Africa.
Thank you, Obio, for welcoming us and taking us through the length and breadth of Africa. I don't know if Boaz would like to do it for us in French for our francophones.
Great, thank you. Bienvenue à Kata, des montagnes du Kilimandjaro au son apaisant du Nil, en passant par l'étendue de la savane, la profondeur et l'étendue qui entourent la mer Afrique. Nous disons Caribou, Aquaba, Kaabo, bienvenue, welcome dans une autre mairie africaine passionnante des catalystes. Notre navire est prêt à naviguer. Restez assis et préparez à vivre une expérience à couper les souffles alors que nous vous faisons découvrir les mondes de la blockchain et d'autres technologies exponentielles à la fac. Bienvenue. Merci.
merci beaucoup, mon ami Boaz. Thank you very much. So we also want you to know that things may break since we are having the meeting virtually. Our ship is not that expensive. It may break, it may disconnect sometimes, which we are referring to the internet connectivity issues. It may also waver, but one thing is certain that it will take us to our destination. We'll be able to finish the agenda for today. In case that I drop off or my internet have some issues, just stay on touch, or even if yours drop out, do not run away, stay with us and come back again or reconnect with us again, right? So that's what we want you to know, and welcome to the Catalyst Africa Town Hall. Again, Bernard, we see you. We have not seen you for a very long time. Would you like to say hello to us?
Yes, greeting everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Since last year, I also was missing these platforms because of too much work, too much clash, too many meetings, some compulsory DA meetings that I have to attend. To those that are new, my name is Bernard Spanda. I'm Intersect Developer Advocate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bernard. We appreciate you being here and for being with us all this while and the work that you are doing for the Cardano ecosystem. For those of you that doesn't know, Bernard is one of our community members that is operating in South Africa. Last year, he managed to host physical town hall for us, and we really appreciated. The numbers were very, very much. There was much attendees for that, and we are looking forward to repeat that again in 2025. So, Bernard, we appreciate you.
Yeah, it is not only that meeting. Last week, this week, I was also promoting Africa Town Hall on the open day because I've got your banners, everything. I don't know if some of them are here or not, but I don't know. But thank you very much. I think you are doing very well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bernard, too, for advocating on our behalf across South Africa. We have much project that we want to bring to South Africa, and I'm sure once we finalize it, we'll get in touch with you. We also want you to know that we are very proud to be one of the largest community-led initiatives that is driving blockchain education in Africa, right? And apart from the physical town hall that we are doing over here, right, we have other programs that we do as well. Right, we have expansion program, we have decentralization, we have internet adoption, and we are currently working on blockchain survey. We got funded with Singularity Net to do to see how AI can expand in Africa. So if you are here, you have a research background, or you want to take part in this research, please reach us to Obio, and you will see how we can move it forward from there. So what you are seeing right now in your screen, that is our website, and it addresses all the things that we are doing, right? And then the current things that we want to also do. We have an impact part, right? We celebrate achievement and success of our members, like what Bernard is doing in South Africa, what Obio is doing in Nigeria, what Boaz is doing in Congo, what Madame Efe is doing in Ghana. It's all part of the impact that we are doing. Daniel, forgotten his name, the guy who developed the ADA desk, is also doing so well in Kenya and some other parts of Africa. We also believe in partnerships, right? Recently, we came to an agreement with the Accra Resource Center and then the Ghana community, Cardano Ghana community, to expand the Cardano blockchain to reach the unreached and also host governance workshops. We just came to an agreement, and how do you call it? We are preparing We are preparing to host our first governance workshop in Ghana. Not only Ghana, but from there, we'll build on the success of that and then have another governance workshops. And we also do empowerment of the youth across Africa. So if you are here and you want to learn about blockchain development, get in touch with Bernard. He will guide you and see how it goes. So this is what I want to share with you. But the main agenda for today, right, is for us to discuss the current affairs of the Cardano blockchain technology and also to see what is going on in the community, how Africans can get involved, what can we do to get involved, how can we also take part in decision making and host some of the positions that have been opened in the ecosystem. And we have here today Hobio, who happened to be a member of the committee, Intercept Committee, and he's going to take us through what is going on. So, Obio, if you are there, I give you the ball. Kindly introduce yourself to us again, especially those that they are new, that they want to know who is Obio, what Obio is doing. Then you take us through the current affairs. Thank you very much, my brother.
Thank you so much, Daniel. So I don't know what's happening. I'm trying to open my slide, but it's just stocked up. So maybe I will talk to you whenever my network allows it to come up. I am Ubio Ubu. I'm the CEO and founder of Remostat. Remostat is an inclusive hiring platform that helps people to get access to jobs and sell their skills to into different companies, organizations, and even ecosystems. So far, we've been able to help hundreds of young people across Africa and the developing world to be able to have access to job opportunities. And we are constantly do this for sake of academic. I'm actually an AI developer by experience and by academics, right? And also in the Cardano ecosystem, I actually sit in the Intersect Constitutional Council. And so today we are going to be like uh, Daniel actually introduced, we're going to be discussing the whole current affairs, governance, and current affairs, Cardano governance and current affairs. But the way I planned us to do it was quite different. I really don't know why this is not coming up.
Will
Okay,
you
I
want
have
me
it in
to
my.
share your slide for you?
I used Canva, so I was supposed to share it directly from Canva, but the link has just been hooking up since I opened my browser. Like it's just, I don't know what's wrong. I think it's probably overloaded, right? With a lot of work. It's tired.
Yes. So what we can do is that you can add the African Town email address as a member of the Canvas. I don't know how. Let me check with my. I think I've shared my Canva with somebody before. Then I'll be able to view for you and then share. A minute, please.
Okay.
So at the top right corner,
Okay.
you see share. Then you see collaboration link. You click on it, the collaboration
Yeah, the
link.
thing is actually from the browser. The browser is like it's
Okay.
it's very difficult. Yeah, since I turned it up, it's been up for the whole 3 days. I've been working on a lot of stuff. So, but anyway, whenever I just want to give it time. I'm sure it will come up by itself, and I'm going to share
Sure.
my screen. Okay, it's coming up now. So today we'll be discussing governance, current affairs with me. And the way I want us to do this is rather than make it a one-sided discussion, is for us to have a participatory discussion. So first, I'm going to outline what we need to discuss, right? Issues that are currently ongoing in the ecosystem. And then also the only thing I will be doing differently is probably to be giving us some of the internal conversations that actually prompted some of the outputs or outcomes that we actually noticed. I would also probably be sharing the internal discussions that we had or we're looking at that actually prompted a particular step to be taken against the other one. And so, first off, we are going to be discussing the ratification of the Constitution. I think for most of us now, we all know it's no more a discussion or a question that the Cardinal Constitution has actually been ratified. So we will be looking deep into how was it ratified, how many people voted, what happened, and then we'll now go into the logic behind the ratification. What were we looking at from the Constitutional Council point of view? What were people actually looking at? Why did we vote yes? And all of those kind of conversation, right? The second part of what I want us to also discuss is actually looking into the treasury tax debate that is currently ongoing in the ecosystem. I'll be letting us know the conversations we have for and the conversations we have against, right? So, letting us understand why people are saying that the treasury tax should be increased or decreased. What are the constitutional? So again, just for perspective, most of the perspective I'll be sharing is going to be coming from a constitutional point of view. So yeah, so just to give clarity there. Another thing that we'll be looking at is actually just an update on the fact that Cardano is now in the USA Treasury, and for us to also discuss what are the implications of this to us. Do we think that's a positive thing? How does this affect us? Are we pushing more towards a political thing? Because the discussions have actually arisen, like people are feeling like, I know, so some active members of the community have had to drop down because they feel that this is no more aligning with their view, that the state should be separated from the blockchain and we shouldn't be taking a strong position towards the blockchain. So I would also want to hear other perspective. What do people think from this from the African Town Hall? And we'll also discuss the budget, right? The reactions that we had to the budget, what it means and why we should position ourselves differently for this. Okay, so first, the Constitution has been ratified. And so how was the Constitution ratified is a question that we may want to ask ourselves. The Constitution was ratified so let's start with the structure just to lay a governance structure for those people who may not actually understand how the governance structure in Cardano works, right? So in the new system that was developed post Chang'e, that's entering into the whole into the new Volta era, for changes to be made in the Cardano chain, we have 3 bodies. Now, these bodies, you may want to think of it as similar to the initial Genesis chain or Genesis keys, right? That we had in the Cardano blockchain, where we had the IOG, Emugo, and the Cardano Foundation, right? So, but this was actually what was existence in the Genesis key. The Genesis key then was relevant because we were not in the Volta era. The Volta era signifies a time when the power actually belongs to the people. And as such, the Genesis key cannot just be with institutions, right? It cannot just be a function of IOHK. It cannot just be a function of Emugo. It cannot just be a function of the Cardano Foundation. They do not have that power to actually dictate what is actually going on in our ecosystem as they would. So in the new structure, this is the new structure. The new structure constitutes the Constitutional Council. It constitutes the DREPs, and it also constitutes the SPOs. So, just for sake of information, in case there are people that don't understand this, so this is actually the new structure of how decisions are being made on-chain with respect to Cardano in this new Volta era. So now let's talk about the Constitutional Council. The Constitutional Council votes on the constitutionality of an action, not necessarily on the logic or the sentiment of the community. And again, this is extremely important for us to lay this background, because most time people always attack us in the Constitutional Council when we make decisions, not necessarily because they feel that we should be checking the pulse of the community, how people feel about issues, and directly respond to these things. But that is not our role. Our job in the new structure is to look at issues and ask ourselves, is this constitutional or not? Check other precedents of constitutional actions, and also check if this aligns. And where there is the constitution is gray, we can actually check the implication of those actions on already existent factors in the constitution. Look at us more like the Senate guys who are there to, we vote based on the, okay, sorry, should we say they are the Senate? Because we vote on the constitutionality of events, right? So we don't execute. Our job is to vote on the constitutionality of event. We have the second guys, which is actually the D-reps. The D-reps are the representatives of the people. These are the people, they actually make, they actually represent the voters or the general populace. And so they vote according to the sentiment of the people. So you can see the two differences, right? The Constitutional Council votes on the constitutionality of a change or a governance action. The D-reps vote on how they think that their people think, right? So the D-rep is representing is a constituency, right? So I think this is the one that actually aligns more with the Senate. I think the Constitutional Council aligns more with the judiciary, because the judiciary is about the law and the legality of things. But this the D-reps, I think they align more with the Senate and the House and all of that, because their votes actually represent a number of people. And so just for a sidetrack, if you're here and you have not yet actually delegated, or you're not a D-rep, I think you're actually not the right thing, because you are not participating in the on-chain governance. So in on-chain governance, we have all parties involved, and so D-reps can vote yes, no, and abstain, similar with the council. But the difference is that if you don't delegate, you are on automatic abstain, right? So we must understand this. And then we have the SPOs, right? SPOs vote on the technicalities and how it affects them, right? So those are guys, they are the people that have the whole stake, they are stake pool operators. And so once a decision is about to be made, they ask themselves, how does this benefit us? How does this benefit us on a technical base, and how is this going to affect us technically, right? So they think about that. Just for summary, not everything can be voted by these houses, especially when it directly affects them, but we are not going to go into that. Now, I'm laying all of these precedents to say that the Constitution was passed based on this criteria. So we had over 80% D-reps who said yes. Now, for this to pass, I think we needed about a 60% majority or so. And so we had over 80% saying D-reps voting yes, 389 yes, 22 no, and 8 abstain. So at the end of the vote, it was 389 people that voted yes. 22 persons voted no to the Constitution, and 8 were on automatic abstain. Going to the Constitutional Council, 7 of 7 ICC committee actually voted yes, right? And what were the and so observe something. Someone may ask, what of the SPOs? Somebody want to answer why we are not talking about the SPOs here? Anybody can answer that? Yeah, anybody just come off mic. Let's see. Anybody knows why? So I just mentioned that. And again, if you do have questions, like I said, you want to be brought, there's something in this whole discussion that we are going to be bringing that you're always like, what, why did they do this and all that? This is it. But again, don't forget that most of my response is going to be coming from a constitutional part. So I may not be giving, but if I can't give you the logical part, I will also do that. But I'm just trying to give this. Yeah, Nana?
Yeah, hi, Obio. I think your question is not quite clear. So if you could clarify it a bit and then
Okay, so I'm talking about the fact that the Constitution was ratified, and I'm telling us how it was ratified, but I did not mention any stake pool operator voting. I only mentioned the council, the Constitutional Council, and the D-reps and how they voted. So I'm asking, why did the SPOs? Anybody knows why the SPOs did not vote?
did not vote on the constitution?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So if I want to answer, right, I would say that it is obvious that like you rightly mentioned, we cannot have all Genesis entities participating on certain activities at the time, right? It is the same
Yeah.
way in this case, given that we have introduced new bodies to the governance era. Not all governance bodies can participate on a particular governance action at a time. So, for instance, governance actions that has to do with constituting a new constitutional committee um, automatically bars the ICCs from voting on such governance actions, because if they are allowed to do so, what it means is that they are going to vote in their favor, right?
For
And we
themselves,
don't
yeah.
want that, so we are going to prevent them from doing that. And for SPOs as well, in this instance, regarding the constitution, they are they are more like looking out for the network security of the ecosystem and the sustainability of the ecosystem. So we do not want to give them too much of a job to do, because for an SPO to vote, what it means is that they have to actually update their notes and then afterwards cast their vote. And we don't want them using their keys too much, because it is very technical here. I mean, when it comes to security, right? And their focus really has to do with parameter update and hard forks and those other activities. Every other activities, it is believed that the constitutional committee and then the DREP should be able to handle it perfectly. So that is why the SPOs were spared from actually participating on this particular governance action. That is the constitution.
Thank you so much, Nana. I think that's exactly what I wanted us to hear. So and to lay the foundation that okay, so not everything is voted by everybody. So we need to know who is responsible and for what, right? So that's exactly what I wanted to bring up. So yeah, so that was how it was actually ratified. 7 of the 7 ICC members voted a yes, and 389 voted. Okay, I've made that. Okay, so let's go into the constitutionality and the arguments and what were the core things. Now, the rationales are much. I'm not going to go deep into telling you this is what we discussed. So I'm going to look at what are the key things that we looked at when we actually said voted yes from our council, especially the Intersect Council, but generally from what most of the councils were looking at. I'm reading out here just a summary I did here. The governance action meets the formal requirements of the governance action in the Article 3, Section 6 of the interim constitution. Now, I've mentioned a term there that I need to clarify. So we had an interim constitution that was created that was what was being used pre the constitution itself. So in checking if the constitution was what the new constitution was actually constitutional, we referred to the interim constitutional the interim constitution that was actually drafted. So in Article 3, Section 6 of the interim constitution, it contains a little it shows that for anything to be drafted, it has to have the general body, the title, the abstract, motivation, rationale, and everything detailed, and all the supporting links and everything that needs to actually come with it. Which was actually the case. So in submission of that particular governance action, the technical requirement of how it should be drafted and everything was actually in line with the interim constitution, Article 3 of that particular constitution. But most importantly, one of the things we checked was that all the supporting documents in the was in line with the off-chain version of what was actually voted on in Buenos Aires, right, in Argentina, and in Nairobi, Kenya, in December 2024. Section 6 of the interim constitution, it also contains, shows that it needed to contain everything, and then we were able to check what was in there and make sure that it aligned with what was actually available and what was actually obtainable, right? So those were the key, those were like some key factors that we were looking at before we said, oh, this is constitutional. And yeah, also the offline version of this particular constitution that was ratified in Argentina contained about, we had over 90% of persons that were in the room of the six delegates actually voting or saying yes to that particular constitution. As such, our job was to check, does it align with what was agreed offline? Does it, was there any change? Being that everything was the same and there was no this thing, then definitely we had. Checking through precedents, this was actually the first of its kind. So there was no precedence to hold against to say that this is the precedence upon which previous votes were actually made. As such, we could not have any argument on a precedence base to use against it or for it as well. So this is how the Constitutional Council came to the point of saying that this is constitutional and we need to actually vote in. Obviously, we checked a lot of other factors. Like I said, we are looking at the core things, right? We checked the spirit of the Constitution. Is it in line with is it consistent and every other thing, the guardrails and everything, and then we were satisfied with the outcome, and that is why the Interstate Constitutional Council voted a yes, and also why most of the constitutional councils voted a yes to the and ratified the Constitution. So I'm going to pause here to see if there is anybody that want to add anything to the conversation or want to ask any question before we move to the second discussion point that we have on the list here, which is treasury tax debates and what it's all about.
Thank you very much for the first phase. I don't have any question. I'm really enjoying your presentation and the updates and current affairs that you are giving. Yes, Nanasafo.
Sorry, Daniel. I hope I didn't cut you short.
No, I don't have
No.
a question. I'm rather recommending Obio that I really like the way he's giving us the up-to-date and the way he's doing his presentation. Very informative. But you can go ahead and ask your question, Nana.
Yeah, I don't have a question either. I just wanted to um more like throw a bit of light on one of the major reasons why we saw about 85% of D-reps approving this on-chain governance action, right? So that at least there's a balance, because he has touched on the interim constitution, but I just wanted to throw a bit of light from the perspective of D-reps. So as you all may know, there was this workshop. There were the workshops, and then out of the workshops, people were elected and as delegates to go and represent their various communities. And then when they were there, they did what they had to do, and then at the end of the day, out of their voting, we realized that about 99% of them actually said, yes, this is good. We should actually take it up. And, they brought it up to us as DREPs to kind of review and vote on it. But really, really, the main reason I would say for DREPs voting in their huge quantities to actually pass this constitution was the fact that we had actually made a lot of expenses in putting it together, or I mean, making it a living document. And for that reason, if we are to consider the fact that, look, we spent these huge amounts of money, right? So if we are to say, okay, you know what, the constitution is not good, we don't want this constitution, go and put together another constitution, it means we are practically asking to go and spend another round of same amount of money to put together another document. So if you look at the various rationales coming from different DREPs, right, out of their votes, you get to draw a certain sentiment that, okay, we are actually giving you guys a nod, right? We are passing this constitution for you, for the ecosystem. We know there are a lot of issues in the constitution in terms of gaps and loopholes and whatever that can actually be improved, right? But we are passing it either ways because we need it to be able to move to the next stage of the governance process. So we are passing it. But as we are passing it, the interim constitutional committees, or let me say the constitutional committees, because obviously the interim constitutional committee, their mandate are going to come to an end pretty soon, and a new committee would have to be constituted. So it is the mandate of these individuals or these bodies to ensure that whatever activities that are going to go on in the ecosystem, as far as governance is concerned, is constitutional or not constitutional. And it is. I mean, for me personally, I feel like they need to up their games in terms of interpreting some of these issues. Like for instance, and I'm glad that the next topic is going to touch on the tax, the treasury tax cuts, right? Because I feel like if it is a job of the constitutional committees to kind of interpret the constitution, right, and make it clear as to whether a certain governance action meets it or doesn't meet it, it becomes easier for DREPs to actually pay attention to the real impact a certain governance action is going to have on the ecosystem, instead of thinking about whether or not it is constitutional, right? So yeah, that is the light I wanted to throw. I mean, for DREPs, we are happy that we have a constitution, but we are still holding on to the constitutional committees to ensure that they are looking at the constitutionality of governance action that comes forth before any other thing continues. Thanks.
Uh,
Thank you so much.
okay. I have a question, but I think let me give Madam, if I saw a hand up, let me give her the chance to ask.
Danny, it's okay. Go on.
Okay, so I wanted to ask when we were talking, you did mention something like how do you call it, holding another convention to discuss the constitution or going back to amend the constitution is going to be costly. But this is the future of the blockchain. So should we focus more on the cost involved or future outcome, like on certain things that we know that if we don't rectify now, we don't amend now, it's going to be an issue for us in the future. Should we say because we are spending a lot of money to hold the constitution, and so we shouldn't go back to the blackboard to make that corrections?
Yeah, let me try to step in there because, but Nana, if you're not okay with my response, you may want to as well respond in. We are not going to have any perfect constitution. It never was, never is, and never will. What we in the Constitutional Council look at is this constitution a living document, and does it in itself contain measures that will allow it to evolve with the evolving times, right? So that is the key thing that we're looking at. So there are imperfections, there are places, there are languages, there are things that a lot of us were not satisfied with, even in the drafting of the Constitution itself. But what we're looking at was beyond all of this. Does it actually have what it takes to self-organize, self-evolve, and self-develop? That's the key thing that we are looking at in the Constitution, right? So yeah, we saw a lot of things, but let's have one first before we talk about two. That was what we're all thinking about. So
Yeah, and that is very accurate, right? And I mean, if you recall what I said earlier, I mentioned that DREPs are like, you know what, we need this to move to the next stage, right? And what you have is good, right? It's a good document, even though there are loopholes and stuff, but it is a very good document that we can actually start off with, right? So we are starting, but then we are going to keep an eye out on the constitutional committees to ensure that they are doing their work practically. That is ensuring that because this constitution was going to pave way for other governance actions to also come in, right? Because whatever governance action that is submitted, it has to be just opposed against the constitution to ensure that it is in light with what the ecosystem wants or doesn't, or is not in light. So we are giving the notes, but it is the duty of the constitutional committees to ensure that whatever governance actions that are coming in, right, aligns with what we have set forth in the constitution as an ecosystem. Of course, going forward, there's going to be amendments, because there are a lot of ambiguities in terms of sentences
language.
and wordings, right? So there's going to be amendments to ensure that some of these issues are ironed out so that there's clear, narrative and you know exactly what A means and exactly what Z means, right? So that people don't interpreted it on their own ways and then becomes a lot of discussion. Because if you look at Twitter right now, there's a lot of discussion going on, particularly with this treasury tax. Some are saying it's not constitutional, some are saying it's constitutional, and it is all stemming from the fact that Appendix I of the Constitution, which is Article 2, Section 6, right? The statement over there is a little bit ambiguous, and it is driving a lot of crazy discussions in the ecosystem. So we will obviously have to avoid that. But going forward, the constitutional committee, they may have to up their games in terms of responding to some of these issues and ironing issues out, because it is, yes, they are the jury of our country. Let me put it that way, right? So they have to do the interpretation for us to also follow suit.
Yeah, thank you. And just to say, every interpretation comes most times with rationale, because just like the judiciary, it forms future precedents that other people can go back in the future. Just like when the Supreme Court judge overthink, people use that as a way to interpret certain things in the law. So yeah, this is where our responsibility comes in and how we look at things from our part. Um, so I think we are really running out of time. So I'll take the second one, which is, I think, very important. Other ones, we can just discuss them as information, but the conversation around treasury tax debates, like what's going on with treasury tax. I would really want Nana to also come into the conversation here, just for sake of giving context to those who don't know. There is a governance action that was placed, and the governance action is asking that the treasury tax be reduced from 20% to 10%. And this is a key conversation. The guys feel that by reducing from 20% to 10%, we give the SPOs more liquidity while reducing the amount of money in the treasury, but allowing people to be incentivized to actually come into the ecosystem and work more, realizing that there is actually much more for them to gain, right? Logical argument. Another argument comes that, oh, we actually need treasury tax to be there and even more, because it helps the ecosystem to get much more money to push in for treasury for ecosystem task and ecosystem management or project. Things like marketing, engagement, doing a lot of these stuffs are all tied to this treasury tax. And without this treasury tax, we can't do a lot of these things. This is what the arguments have been. What does the law say with respect to this conversation? Tenet 4 talks about the conversation around treasury limit. Here it's like a guardrail, and then limit of so the guardrail here says that treasury tax may not be lower than 10% and should not exceed 30%, nor be negative or exceed 100%. And then so and then it also so these are like the core things that we're looking at from the constitutional part. So first off, we must say that this governance action is actually constitutional on the face value, because it's actually if it was asking us to reduce anything below 10% or anything exceeding 30%, that would be a big issue, right? Because that would be against the Constitution. But as the Constitution lies here, then we can say this governance action is on a face value constitutional. However, people have been quoting some articles like that says about hard fork initiation and hard fork parameter change. Governance action shall undergo sufficient technical review and scrutiny as mandated by the guardrails to ensure that governance action does not endanger the security, functionality, performance, or long-term sustainability of the Cardano blockchain. Now, just to say, so on-chain governance should address their expected impact on the Cardano blockchain ecosystem. This is Article 3 of the Section 5, right, of the this of the Constitution, right? So this is where the argument really lies. We are about to make a parameter change. Has it undergone sufficient? I think so. The key word here is sufficient, because they make some mathematical argument, right, showing that, oh, this is not going to affect the ecosystem again. So the question where we are actually arguing from and trying to judge or place the morals of our decision is on the key technical question of sufficiency. Is it sufficient? Have there been enough technical review? And then is there enough scrutiny? So some of the arguments that most so, this is, and I'm sure this will also help for the D-Reps and other people that might want to know why people like the Cardinal Foundation actually voted no, and why some of us are actually are not strongly saying yes, despite quote unquote that this governance action does not in a face value nullify or attack any the precedence of the guardrail 10 to 30%, right? So we are looking at the sufficiency of the technical review that has been done. You may argue that there is actually, that's an ambiguous statement, yes, and there's actually no parameter to actually base it on and be like, to this extent is sufficient or not. But again, we felt that, one, we are just coming into a new era, a lot of change happening. We just moved. So there's been no place for these people to do a concrete change management with respect to the new changes that is on the chain and on the constitution, right? So this and then again, we actually went into the material that was submitted, and for some of us, we do think it's still not sufficient enough. There's a lot more technical review and scrutiny that needs to be done. And again, this scrutiny and should it not come from a much more technical organization? Should we have technical organizations in Cardano, right? That are in charge, they understand the protocol and all of this much more. So these are the people that should be the one to give us the technicality review. They should be the one to say this is actually not going to affect, and not just any other person just saying it's not going to affect. This is where the conversation really lies, and this has been like a core debate, especially when Cardano Foundation voted no yesterday. I think Emugo is on abstain. It's actually making it, I think we need 66% to pass or so, and this is already making it to start with a very bad foot, meaning the probability of it passing is getting tighter. If we have one more or two more councils saying no to it, or not even responding before the time that the epoch elapsed, it's likely that this particular governance action may not pass. Yeah, so this is the conversation from, like I said, I'm only giving a constitutional perspective to the conversation. I'm not necessarily saying yes or no, we're just saying that this is how we are looking at what is actually going on.
Okay. Obio, do we know why Emergo abstained? Have they come out with any statements so far?
Yeah, so most times abstains are always when people think there is a conflict of interest
Okay.
or they think they do not have enough sufficient information to make a particular decision in that
Okay.
regard, then abstain is always the default. Ona?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ona.
Uh, um, uh,
Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I said who initiated the reduction of the treasury tax? Who is the person that submitted the governance action?
Oh, that's a nice question. I've not really taken time to look at them, but while we are still on this conversation, I can rush through and get it
Because
for
if we
you.
know the person initiating it, we can better understand the basis of the reason. But as it is, if it's not passed, I don't think it affects anything. If it's passed, it can always be resubmitted. But I don't think it hinders the progress of the blockchain or the functioning of the blockchain as it is presently. It's not as though it's going to hold down passing of the budget or implementation of the budget. So I just want to know who initiated that governance action.
Thank you. Nana, do you have a response to that or you have another question?
yeah, that's a great question, right? But unfortunate is I'm really looking for this individual who put together this particular governance action, right? But the few I knew who were, capable of putting it together, I discovered that they are not actually the ones behind this particular proposal. Okay, so right now, it is a whole new thing to actually explore. I'm yet to actually find out who is behind this. And I see Seidu's hand was raised. Seidu, do you happen to know who is behind it?
Hello, no, no, not actually. I don't. I've not also checked it, but earlier on, I've seen it, and then the name is something that escaped me. I have to also go through my gallery
You
or
had
my
seen it,
account.
huh?
Yeah, I've
Okay,
seen the name of it. Have escaped me, but I'm
okay.
not with my people where I could have just referred to that. But I just want to comment on the obvious presentation on that governor action to be specific. Currently, as we watch three. CC members has voted, right? CF is saying no, and then I think one is it
Cardano Atlantic Council.
Atlantic Council have voted
Yeah, they
yes,
have
and
voted yes.
Imego has voted
Yeah.
no. As Obi has explained, when I saw CF voting no, I was so worried in the sense that when you are saying no, it means that it is unconstitutional, as Obi has been mentioned. Indeed, the government action was constitutional when you look at the basis of it, but passing it or ratifying it or taking it to decision lies in the hands of DREPs. And we could see that DREPs were already voting against that government action. But we should get very careful to set a precedent that will tell us or hint us going forward. We are still at the beginning or the early stages of on-chain governance in the ecosystem. Because if the thing is it's constitutional. Let it be constitutional. The best the CF could have done, in my view, is that they should have just abstain and then go and use their direct ID and then vote no. I think that would have been the best way for me. Because if you say no, it's not it's unconstitutional. But we know that the amount that they are proposing is not exceeding what has been stated in the constitution. It's not also below what has been stated in the constitution, which is not exceed 30%, which is not also below 10%. So why should we say no? Though I've not also take time to go through their rationale for voting no. And so please, I think these are something that we should just take a time and look onto going forward.
Yeah, thank you. I'm on this thing now. They didn't put their name. I'm only seeing their governance action ID and all of that. Maybe they wanted to be anonymous as well. That's also allowed. Just to
So,
say
sorry,
that I
can I
said I'm only
respond to
seeing.
Seidu? No, I
Okay,
got
yes.
you. I just wanted to respond to what Seidu said. So some things may be constitutional, but it may not be appropriate. As we all know, the Constitution gives us guide rails. That's why they call them guide rails. That something is constitutional, it aligns with the Constitution, does not necessarily make it appropriate or suitable. So let's be clear as to that. 10% treasury tax is in line with the constitution, but if we implement it now, what are the wider implications? So CC members can say, oh, it's constitutional, but it may not be appropriate for the long-term stability of the Cardano blockchain. So I think that's the perspective we need to look at it. You're not just only thinking about constitutionality, but also the effect of something that is constitutional in the blockchain.
Yeah, so I just want to add that maybe let's look at it this way. A constitutional action that affects the constitutionality of other things, right? So if we vote that this is constitutional, but it's going to now affect other things, right? That or is breaking. So look at the way the judiciary is. The judiciary does not just depend on one line of code to actually interpret the law. So yes, they are making a case on the fact that 10%, what we are asking you to do, or the governance action we are putting in is actually in line with the constitution, right? From 20 to 10. But it is our duty to look at that's why we are a constitutional council, because we are looking at everything holistically. So we are looking and be like, okay, but the constitution also says that if we are going to do this, then it has to pass through enough technical scrutiny and review, right, before this is done. So the mere fact that you've done one does not mean you should break number two. So the constitutionality of an action should be consistent. And again, like I said, these are open to conversation. We can argue and say, oh, it was not the security is okay and all of that. Now that's debatable. But I'm just trying to make you understand that in the Constitutional Council, or when interpreting the Constitution, we don't just look at the line. That's why we are a council. We have to understand the Constitution holistically. So that when the fact that you are making one, and while you are doing one, you should not be breaking the second part. So it has to be consistent with all elements of the Constitution for it to be constitutional, not just one element of the Constitution.
Yeah, and if I should take the space, I mean, I like the response, Edu, you have provided. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ubio, right? It is not just about a portion of the Constitution, right? A governance action needs to be consistent with the entirety of the Constitution, especially when we are dealing with governance actions of these types, these ones that actually causes parameter changes. We need to be extremely careful to ensure that we are not implementing something that is going to have a long-term effect on the ecosystem. And one thing that really was missing in the governance action, right? That draws a lot of attention is the fact that they didn't state categorically what a reversal plan is like for this particular governance action. So for instance, if we agree to set the tax from 20% to 10%. And then we realize that, okay, our treasury is depleting so fast, given our current expenditure, right? For instance, we all know that, our annual budget probably is hovering around 20 million ADA, right? Which would easily contribute to depleting our treasury and reserves really fast. Okay. So now we observe that, okay, we are depleting our treasury fast and we are not recouping a lot of funds like we used to recoup. So now what do we do? It is not now that we want to go and sit down and prepare another governance action, parameter change governance action to come and propose that, okay, let's go back to 20%, right? So there has to be a reversal plan in this particular governance action that states that if this particular action that we are proposing, right, if passed, the implementation causes issues. Like for instance, realize that there's the treasury is depleting fast and you're not recouping funds enough, then we revert back to 20%. And even reverting back to 20%, there has to be a process. So what process do we follow to get there? That is the bit that was actually missing in this particular governance action. The other part that talks about whether or not it's going to break security or performance or whatever, those are all debatable, like Obio will put it. Because, like I said, there's a lot of ambiguity in this particular constitution as well, right? If the constitution mentioned that it's going, governance action that actually pertains with performance and security. What do you mean by performance? What do you mean by security? How do you define it? It is not defined in the constitution. So everybody is left to interpret it in any way that they think is right for them, right? And that is why we have a lot of different opinions going about, people saying it is constitutional, people saying, but we are looking at the consistency of the governance action to the constitution. It has to tick each and every single box before we can actually see that it is constitutional. And I am really wondering why the Atlantic Council has voted yes. I'm really curious to go and learn about what their rationale is. I opened it in the metadata and I'm seeing some green checks, green checks, green checks. I don't know what they really are, but I'll go and check it later and kind of educate myself about why they are good. And one thing that we maybe the constitutional committees can also do to help DREPs is the fact that for governance actions of this nature, right, which requires thorough interpretation of the Constitution, they need to come out with their opinions as early as possible, right? You can hold on with your votes, but you should come out with your interpretations as early as possible so that DREPs, because you can see a lot of DREPs have already voted no on this particular governance action because somebody said it is not constitutional. Cardano Foundation voted no, and for that reason, a lot of DREPs have voted no. If you read their rationales, they're all saying, it is not constitutional, it doesn't align with this, blah, blah. But if you go deep down, right, you can say that a part of it obviously is constitutional, but a part of it is not is also not consistent with the constitution. So we have to consider that. But really, DREPs should be looking at the impact and not necessarily the constitutionality of this particular governance action. That is what we are supposed to be focusing on. If you're a DREP and you're yet to vote on this particular governance action, focus on what the impact is, the long-term impact of this on the ecosystem. That is where your focus should be. Leave the constitutionality bit to the constitutional committees to handle that, and then I think you should be good.
Well spoken. So if you just join us, we are discussing the decreased treasury tax from 20% to 10%. And the voting starts somewhere 13 February 2025, and the deadline is 15th March 2025. So far, about 123 have voted yes, 192 have voted no, and then there's 8 abstain. And there's still, how do you call it, awaiting approval. Over here, looking at the document I'm checking right now, like Obio said earlier on, Imego have voted abstain, IOGIN not voted, Cardano Japan Council not voted, Intercept not voted, Eastern Cardano Council to not voted. So that's the current statistics that we have here. Bernard, please, you may proceed with what.
Thank you very much. I've got a question here. How was the 20% arrived at? Because the request to revert to 10%, the premise is they are attacking the process by which it was arrived at 20%. So if you can, in brief, highlight how was the 20% arrived at?
Obio, should I take that or you're good to do?
Yeah, you can take it.
All right, sure, thanks. So initially it was going to be proposed that it was going to be set at 5%, right? IOG had done their research, they had done their simulations and whatever, and they were happy to actually set it at 5%. But quickly before, the introduction of the Shelley era, they now decided, okay, you know what, let's do 20% to see how things will play out. And then afterwards, we can always look at reverting back to about maybe 10% or 5%, right? Or even going up to about 30%, but we shouldn't go above 30% and below 10%. So that was the threshold that was set, right? But for now, this particular 10% proposal is being proposed in light of the fact that people feel like the treasury has actually accumulated a lot because the treasury is now the reserves is now sitting out at about 7.9 billion ADA, and then the treasury is also sitting at about 1.7 billion ADA, right? So people feel like there's a lot of money in our treasury and our reserves. So now let's lower the tax so that at least SPOs can also enjoy their rewards and whatever. But for me, I think one thing that SPOs probably should be paying attention to is how they can actually recoup all their rewards from from the system, right? Without having to leave some of them go back to the reserves. I think that is one thing that SPO should be looking out for. Because if they're able to actually find a solution to it, then it means that they're actually getting 80% of generated revenue from transactional fees. Okay. and they are not just getting a percentage out of the 80%. So if they should figure out a solution to that, I think they will be good enough in terms of adjusting their economy and their management and whatever to ensure that whatever it is that they are doing, they are getting enough rewards to actually put in the work, right? Rather than focusing on this treasury tax, I always say that look, we just step foot in the governance era. Some of these things, some of these issues, they are very, very pertinent and they're very important, but we need to lower our pace, right? Because if we don't do that, I always say like we have just been given a rope, and we need to learn how to use a rope before we hang ourselves. Other than that, as a community, look, we'll be like, there's money, there's money. Myself as a DREP, yourself as a community member, either a DREP or either holder, one thing you should always know is that 1.7 billion treasury has been handed over to you to manage it. How are you going to manage it? Are you going to open it to people to come and just take the money, or you are going to, shield it and then do strategic spending? That is what we should be looking out for as an ecosystem and community members. I think if you look at things from that perspective, some of these actions, when they come up, right, we are able to understand exactly what they are looking for and exactly how the impact is going to be on the ecosystem. Because given that this particular action passes, what it means is that there's going to be about 12.9% increase in rewards, taking rewards. So for instance, if you have about 100,000 ADA, 100,000 ADA staked to an SPO who is not yet saturated, right? You are going to get about 34 ADA increments per epoch, right? You may see that as good money, but how does just opposing 34 ADA per epoch increment, how would you just oppose it to exactly halving the treasury inflows? So if, for instance, if you are getting about 10 million ADA per year currently, we are going to get 150 million ADA per year if this treasury is halved. And how long can they sustain the ecosystem? Because as we move on, expenditure keeps on increasing. And like we are seeing now, 200 million ADA, roughly 200 million ADA for budget, right? Obviously, next year is going to increase. The following year is going to increase. And before you realize, 1.7 billion ADA or whatever probably comes up is depleted, and the reserves are also depleted. And where is the ecosystem to actually guard now, right? So to answer your question, Bernard, it was coming from the fact that people feel like IOG initially had said that okay, it is safe, and I think along the line they also performed some simulations to actually confirm again that okay, it is safe to actually decrease it to about 5%. And people are taking their narrative from that perspective that okay, because IOG has done this, and there is that to actually reference, let's do it now and then also enjoy. But let's do it at 10%. But I would always say that even if we want to decrease, we should look at decreasing by, say, 5%. So from 30%, we can come to 15%. That way, the shock would not be as huge as depleting exactly half. And then we monitor how, because the argument is that it is going to, open doors for increased participation. But my question really is, how does somebody who is holding, let's say, 100 ADA or 1,000 ADA, right, really benefit from this? Because the staking rewards itself, if it is not, if your stake is not really huge, you don't get to see the staking rewards like people really see, right? Because it is those who are holding the huge bags who are enjoying from all of these discussions and everything. So they are just in the backgrounds watching how things play out, right? But I think for the broader community, those of us who are not holding much, we should really look at how we will get the opportunity to actually contribute to the ecosystem positively without condemning it at all.
So let's put it this way. SPOs, decreasing it now, I'm talking from a direct perspective, the impact would be that more SPOs and more wells would enjoy, but where the common man enjoys, the guy with the lower back enjoys, is through treasury, right? Because when you put money in the treasury, it's for the common good, right? So it increases, it's more like a social benefit system against capitalism, where everybody who does not have the big back benefit is from those social benefit that is being brought. And those social benefit is only done through treasury.
Okay. So thank you very much, Obio, for your presentation and enlightening us on the current affairs, and also Nanasafo for your contributions. and all of us for the questions that we have asked. Bernard and the rest, Sedu, we really appreciate the questions you have asked. I'm sure there's more for us to discuss, but because of time, we'll bring it to an end here, but that's not the end. Our next meeting is on 21st of March, 2025. That's in 2 weeks from now, and we will continue with the discussion. It's good that we educate ourselves on such activities that's going on in the ecosystem so that we take an informed decision. And also, if we are trying to onboard people or tell people about Cardano, we know what to say to them. So thank you very much, all of you, for coming to today's town hall. If you are not on our social media handle, you're not in our Telegram, Richmond will be sharing the links with you, or Boaz will be sharing with you. Kindly join our Telegram, follow us on Twitter, and then our website as well, so that we'll get informed. Earlier on, I announced about our partnership with the Accra Resource Center and the Cardano Ghana community. We are planning on organizing governance activities, just like what we are discussing right now, to educate the community in Ghana. After that, we'll move to another country. We are trying to recruit 2 new countries into our existing countries that we are operating in, and we'll keep you updated on that as well. If you have any discussions, any opinions, how we can actually reach the unreached and expand the African Town Hall, you are welcome to bring it on board. We appreciate all of you for coming to today's Catalyst African Town Hall. We have officially ended the town hall. However, if you want to stay along, or any of you want the resource person, your Bill's personal contact, you can chat him. He will share with you. You want an answer for contact, but not anybody at all want to collaborate with them. You have something that is buffering your mind, kindly reach out, or something in concern to the African Town Hall. You can also get in touch with us, catalystafricantownhall@gmail.com or info@catalystafrica.org. On that note, I say thank you very much, and I appreciate you all.
Thank you everyone. Thank you guys.
All right,
Always
bye.
happy
Thank
seeing
you.
you.
Just to announce, right? For the D-reps on this call, I've put something in the chat. Please try your best to check it out for us. We are looking to build an onboarding toolkit that would make or streamline the process for, the next D-reps will be coming in the ecosystem. So yeah, please share your experience with us, and then let us refine the current process. And also just to announce, there's been an update with the budget process. I don't know if you made an announcement earlier, but for now, what the update really is about on high level is that there's going to be an opening for vendors and community members, builders, contributors, innovators, whoever, to submit their own budgets. And then these budgets will be reviewed by GREPs and also the budget committee. And then, the topmost ones will be included or involved in the final budget draft that will be put on chain for GREPs to vote on. So if you're a vendor here, if you're a contributor here, either a developer, an innovator, or whatever, try and look out for how you can actually participate. I'll put a link to it in the chat so that you can just go and read more about it, and then know when or where to submit your budget to.
Yeah, I think that was part of it, but since because of time, I felt like maybe we have that conversation focused on budget next week. So our next meeting. So maybe Nana, you can take that, right? For the next meeting, you can focus on budget and we discuss budget.
Sure. Provided I'm available, I'm happy to do that. Let's coordinate and see how things work.
We'll be discussing that Obio and Asafo.
No, Nana,
Sure.
you can share the link with me about the DREV distance, so I'll check it later, or you share it on the other platform.
I'll
Or
send
you
the
can
link
share
in
it
the
on the
chat now.
platform as well.
Yes,
That's all.
I'll share on the chat now. So I don't know, maybe Daniel, you can take it up and then put it in your CAT platform so that people can
Sure.
reference later. All right. So thanks for having me. It was a brilliant discussion. I loved it, and I'm happy to meet all of you.
Okay, au revoir.